Hi, and welcome to episode 138 of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. And today is Sunday, February 28th, 2016. Another month of winter over. It's like, yay, just kind of count them down. My dad always said, if you get to the end of February, winter's back is broken. And it feels like that this weekend. It was 50 yesterday and it's in the 40s today. And I know it's going to snow and stuff, but it feels like that spring will actually arrive. Where, the beginning of January, it just feels like so far away. But anyway, this is a knitting podcast. So let's kind of roll in and see what has been on my needles this week. Mostly it has been spent on one project, my kind of focus knitting, and I am almost finished. It will be finished by tomorrow. And that in the back of my mind, that's kind of what I was aiming for, was to have my pelerine, which is what I'm talking about, kind of finished in February. So I have been knitting. I started knitting an applied edging onto the bottom. So this is where I started. I've been doing this little kind of, I'm constructing this kind of like an Orenburg shawl. So I've been doing this little kind of dogtooth edge. And then I kind of came around here and turned the corner, but lengthening it while I turned the corner so that the bottom edge is much wider than the little side edge. So I've gone all the way across, back, forth, all the way. And I am way over to here. I just have this, oh, there's a fuzz. I just have kind of this many stitches left on my needles. So this I will be able to finish up today. The yarn that I'm using for this, let me bend over, comes like a wheel. It's a pencil roving, and it is, they put their tags over like the name, but they call it Swedish wool, and this is the lightweight version. They have a thicker kind of version, but I'm using this a single strand, and there isn't really a yardage kind of on here, so I can't really sort of estimate how many yards I put into this project, because they just have it kind of by weight. She talked about when whoever she gets it from, the mill, they just, I guess it's a kind of an old machine that it's produced on, and they just kind of take it as it spits it out. And so some of the wheels are heavier than other ones. So mine, and then they classify them, by price according to, they have a range of weights between, that would fit like the medium or the large, so that mine ranged from 109 grams, and I think the other ones are 114 grams, and they were all kind of in the same range. But as I was, kind of showing you the edge, I did end up sort of cannibalizing my wheels, because I started out and I turned the corner and it was the darker color. And I had pulled some off of the darker color kind of in the middle, because when you switched wheels, they ended with the dark and they started with the dark. So I didn't want it to be kind of a thicker dark stripe, like kind of right in the middle. So I had pulled some of that off. So I used that, and then I kind of went from the inside, I went from the outside. So I was halfway across, and I didn't want to start letting it kind of do the gradiating kind of at the bottom. I wanted that to be all the darkest color. So I could have finished the whole thing with 3 wheels, but this is my 4th wheel. The 3rd one, I actually took out the portion that was the darkest color. I kind of just pushed the middle out and used the darkest part. And so now I was using the middle one, and I think um, I'm going to start with the outside again. It's it blends so completely and so gradually. It's sometimes hard to tell like where that dark one starts and kind of where to break it off. But um, anyway, I knew I will still be able to use this, both of the third and the fourth wheel, even if it doesn't have that kind of darkest dark color. Um, it'll be good for mittens or hats or whatever. I think this would look really pretty stranded with their kind of Donahue kind of silvery gray. I think those two would look really pretty together. Um, but so anyway, this has been my main knitting. Um, I really like doing applied edges. I know not everybody does, but to me, it's sort of like you've got this big project. It's sort of like you get to say kind of a final goodbye to it. When you do a shawl kind of top down and you just keep going and then you bind off and it's done. This you get to sort of, I kind of, did so many a day that I wasn't really feeling like I was, it was pushing on it. That, and also it's a pretty wide border, so that it was fun to do. It has a nice rhythm to it. And I also do it when I'm working it, I knit backwards, because that saves all the sort of like turning back and forth, turning your needles. Anyway, that was kind of my main knitting. And I'll just show you, this is the basket that I've been keeping this project in, because the wheels kind of sitting there, I wouldn't want to do, use this kind of a yarn with a soft sort of project bag kind of thing, because they would kind of tend to get messed up, especially once that middle opens up. So anyway, that's what I use. That's a basket from the Tall Tale Basket Shop that I bought, ages ago at like Shepherd's Harvest or Stitch. I know Stitches used to be there, and my very first one I bought at a Stitches. But anyway, that is what's been on my needles. So off the needles, I finished the shawl that I was working on the last podcast last week. What I didn't tell you then was that I was knitting it as a gift for somebody. It's kind of why it came up and just took precedence over everything, and I worked through it. I finished binding off on Sunday because I was doing the Pico bind off when I recorded last week. And then Monday I blocked it out, and Tuesday I mailed it off to her. So I know she's received it already, but I wanted you to see it. So I didn't want to kind of hang on to it until this week when I recorded. So I recorded a little something on Tuesday after I picked it up, off the floor when I was blocking it, just so that I could show it to you. I'm really not sure like what I said about it, but it was a handspun shawl that I knit. And so I was really happy with it. This is the first time I've sort of done the kind of all lace version, and I really, really like how it came out. I'm going to probably do that again. It was a pattern that I've knit before a couple of times, but it's one that I enjoy knitting. It has the stitch pattern, has a really nice rhythm. It's really easy to sort of read the lace. So that's kind of why I picked that one. I just wanted it to be kind of go smoothly and be able to knit right through it, because I wanted it to get it off in the mail like really soon. So anyway, I'm going to throw that in. Hi, it's Tuesday morning here. I finished the shawl that I was working on, and I wanted to record a little something just so that you got to see the finished piece. So I was binding off last Sunday when I recorded, and then I blocked it yesterday, and today it's going to be off on its way. And so, okay, so this is the finished shawl. I'm very pleased with how it came out. This is the Fragile Heart pattern from Boo Knits, though I adapted it to use the lace stitch all the way up to the top. And I think it's really pretty that way. I did a couple extra repeats of the edging here and did the picot bind off. I'm really happy. The yarn for this, you can tell it's the difference in color. This was hand spun. It was a 2-ply BFL silk. I added a little silk to one of the singles and then plied. It's a 2-ply yarn, and it's kind of just under 400 yards. I have this much of yarn left. I probably could have extended it just a little bit farther. To extend the length, you had to do kind of 4 rows, and I didn't want to be playing yarn chicken with it, so I ended it here, and I'm happy with the size of it. I just usually try to use hand spun all the way down to the end, but because I knew I was knitting it for somebody that I wanted to kind of get it into the mail quickly. I started this last Tuesday, and Tuesday it's going out again. So I didn't want to be playing yarn chicken and then having to rip back or whatever. And that's also kind of the reason why I chose to do this design. Was I have done it a couple times before. I've never done the lace all the way up to the top, but I knew I liked it. I liked kind of the rhythm in the lace pattern, and so it would be a kind of a quick knit for me. So that's all from here on a Tuesday. Now back to Sunday. And then in spinning, I have one finished bobbin to show you. This is my finished bobbin, the first of 2. I can show you that it's spinning very, very fine. And the fiber for this is what the fiber looks like. It's just like clouds. It's really pretty, kind of blush pink peach on there. And it is Lisa Sousa fiber. Her Zen top, it's 50% merino and 25% each tussa silk and bamboo. I'm not a really big fan of spinning bamboo. It's any really bamboo blends, but this is spinning up really nice. It's got that silk, so it has a nice feel anyway. And so it's spinning very fine and very nice. And so I just started the second bobbin last night, so I have all of this to go. So it'll be a while before I get to. I'm going to spin a sequin yarn, ply it with sequins. So that's kind of the fun part of that project. So it's a ways off yet. For show and tell, I have a new purchase and sort of a new little adventure that I'm going on. I saw this book on a couple podcasts last year, and I thought, oh, that sounds fun, and just kind of thought, no, that will never be me. And this year, here it is. So the book is this, So Many Dresses, So Little Time. It is by Tanya Whalen. And if you kind of have seen me ever at like an event or something, you know I'm probably wearing a dress. It's just what I love to do. I love wearing dresses. To me, it's the easiest, simplest thing. I mean, even if you're going to put on a t-shirt and jeans, you have to figure out which pair of jeans like fits you that day and which, what. I don't know. It's just when you put on a dress, it's just boom, you're dressed. You put on shoes or, whatever. So anyway, I love to wear dresses, and I do not love to sew. I have not sewn anything since probably the 7th grade. I home ec class, I think we had it in 7th grade. I don't even remember, 7th or 8th grade. Um, my mom was a great seamstress. She was a very tiny person, like 5'2", very tiny. They never had petite stores or petite clothes or petite sizes ever. So she sewed all her own clothes. I mean, if she bought a commercial, dress or whatever, she would have to rip it apart and resew it to so it would fit her. So I have her sewing machine. It's a 1947 Singer, and I learned, remember, that's what I sewed on. So I remember kind of like how to thread it and all of that. It still works. I have to look up kind of where to oil it because it hasn't been used in probably 9 or 10 years. So it's been sitting, for a long, long time. But I don't know, I just kind of got a bug that I thought it would be so much fun to be able to sew like a dress or whatever kind of dress I wanted. And I remember somebody showing this book on their podcast and saying, so it's got a bunch of different bodices and then a bunch of different skirts, and you can sort of, swap them out with each other, which is kind of how I like to think of doing things anyway. And I remember her like vividly, like remember her doing that with patterns all the time. She'd have one, she was gonna, do it like this and that. And as a little kid, I spent a lot of time kind of with her because I was the youngest. So she would love to just go hang out in fabric store. And she would take me along probably because my sisters didn't want to babysit me, and probably because I wasn't like wild and crazy and didn't, mess things up in there. I just but I remember wandering through all the bolts of fabric, and there was a separate little room that had all the trim and the braid and the ribbons and stuff, and it just like looked to standing and looking at all of it. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a go, because I remember last summer I really wanted I had a couple of eyelet dresses that I loved wearing, and I looked all over for like a pink eyelet dress, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to start like looking for this pink eyelet dress again, see if they have one this year. And I thought, if I just knew how to sew or sew a dress, I could get material. Because then I started thinking about, well, ZK is in the beginning of June this year, but they have a fabric store. It's the button store that everybody talks about, and I've gone in there to get buttons, and every time I've gone in and there's this fabulous fabric that I sort of look at and fall in love with and think, oh, I wish I knew how to sew, because I would so want to make something out of that. And so I thought, if I start now and sort of try to build a template of a dress that will fit me, maybe by then when I go to ZK, I can buy material and I'll know sort of if it will work. So, I think the hard part in all of this, I mean, that the actual kind of sewing and using the sewing machine isn't what is intimidating me, but it's the sort of getting the thing to fit. That's, I think, is going to be the hard thing. Just like when I'm doing a sweater, I want to have the sweater fit me. It's, kind of just do the pieces or, whatever. If you don't pay attention to sort of your body, and it can, no matter how much time you put into it, it's not going to look good if, it's like way too small or way too big, or sleeves are, whatever. So it's going to be a challenge. I do not expect that I'm going to do a separate kind of segment on the podcast, talking about it. I think maybe Saturday afternoons, I'm just going to sort of set aside maybe a couple hours on Saturday afternoons to play at sewing and see how it goes. If I ever get a dress that works, that fits me, that I'm like not ashamed to like show the public, I will probably wear it on the podcast and tell you that I made it, but I don't expect to do kind of like a separate kind of segment. But anyway, that is going to be my new adventure. I don't know. But I figure it's not a big investment. I think the book was like $18.99 on Amazon. And in the back, it's got, all the patterns for the bodices and some of the skirts. Some of the skirts you have to kind of draft yourself using your waist measurement and kind of the length, so that you can draft that yourself, which is and even all the other patterns you have to sort of trace out. So so yesterday I went to Joann's and I bought some fabric, and I already had a great big roll of freezer paper in the cupboard. It's been in there for years. Anyway, I'll let you know if I ever get a dress that works. So thank you for spending a few minutes with me today. I really, really do appreciate it. And I hope you come back and join me next week. And see, I am a new month. I'm going to have a new focus. My focus knitting will be finished, so I'm going to have a new focus. I do think it will probably be the Blue Flower Bohus, which has not been getting much love lately at all. But I do want to get going on that, because when the weather gets really nice and I can sit outside and knit, I'll be wanting to work on the black bohus that I started last summer, that I cannot see when I'm inside. So I would like to get the Blue Flower finished, but I also want us to start a new kind of lightweight sweater. I have several yarns kind of set aside to do, like figuring weight yarns to do a sweater. I'm not sure what pattern or which kind of color, but I would like to get a new one done, at least one, like hopefully two, but I want to get started on one before ZK, which is in the beginning of June, as opposed to where it usually is at the end of June. So, it still could be a little cold. Like if, you're going to walk outside somewhere, it could be really beautiful and nice, and it could be like a little chilly that you want a sweater. So it would be fun to have like a new sweater. So I will probably have a new project on the needles to show you next week. So please come back and see me. And until I see you again, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.